Okay, Jack, if you're a true Survivor Analytics fan, you might remember that back in Survivor 47, I took Andy in the first round of that draft, and I was the most pro Andy guy on this podcast for 13 weeks straight.
That was a low bar.
It was a low, well, not for me. I was a big Andy fan. I stand by that to this day. But now, I never thought that I'd meet someone that I would root for more than Andy, and I found that person. It's RIZGOD, RizGod, baby. I am a huge Rizzo fan. If you're a Rizzo skeptic, if you're a Riz atheist, I don't want you here. Because I'm a Riz theist. I fully believe in RizGod winning this thing. Welcome to Survivor Analytics. My name is Clyde. I'm the true expert. With me, as always, is the voice of the people in Jack. Jack, how's it going?
Episode 1, Season 49. Our 10th season, Clyde. Can you believe it?
I can.
I can believe it as well. Let me say this. When we did the fantasy draft, I made a comment about how RizGod was like Kirkland Brand U. That came true. Listeners of the podcast aren't going to get this because they haven't, known Clyde for a long time like I have. When you watch the show and you see RizGod wearing his like little polo and his little khaki shorts and his cute little fun printed socks, that's Clyde. That is Clyde. Like the mannerisms, that's Clyde. The wanting to hug himself, that's Clyde. Like the Clyde energy coming off this guy is really strong. And I'm not saying I wanted to hate on him because of that, but I was like, he can't be like, we can't have the Clyde-esque character win this season, right? Like, I don't want to root for somebody on Clyde's fantasy team. I'm a big RIZGOD. I'm right there with you, baby. Like, he's a great vibe. I'm totally on board. He's one of my favorites on this cast already. So
he's one of the most like Gen Z contestants that we've ever had on Survivor. Just the way that he speaks, the way that he talks to the camera. I think there's a moment during that challenge for supplies where he's going up against Alex, where most of the contestants, they're living in the moment, they're doing the puzzle. Rizzo is giving commentary as he's competing.
Yeah.
So he seems hyper aware of like the social media side of the entire operation. But outside Rizzo, how do you feel about the cast? How do you feel about the season 1 episode in?
I'm low on the cast on average. If you took an average of my temperature for each cast member, low. But there are some shining lights. Love RIZGOD. Love Jake. I didn't think I was going to love Jake, and we'll get into him more later.
Yeah.
But I'm high on him. Do I like anybody else? I don't know, man.
Two people on the whole cast.
There's a lot of what in my mind I classify as like kind of like a Carolyn energy, right? There's a lot of kookiness. There's a lot of big characters on this season, and you've got to be a certain kind of big character for me to be excited about you. We haven't seen enough for me to get excited about some of these people, but I don't know. How are you feeling about the cast?
I agree with you to an extent. I feel like Survivor 48 was a season that was dominated by a lot of the physical threats and the challenge beast. There was that whole meaty majority. Is that what we called them?
Or meat majority, boy, maybe.
Yeah,
meat boy majority.
Meat boy majority that dominated the second half of that game. And this cast almost feels like an overcorrection to Survivor 48. Where Jake is the only real imposing physical contestant in this entire group. There's a lot of wild characters here. And you mentioned that there's some Carolyn energy. I don't know if it's Carolyn energy as much as it is knockoff energy, where we have an alternate version of Carolyn in Sage. We have an alternate version of Suri in Christina, I think was her name, right?
Yes. She definitely she's also like, oh, I've never been outside. I have a phobia of birds. I've never been out here before. Like, I hope at some point we get a moment of her saying, like, Suri inspired me, right? I think you've hit the nail on the head. There's one meat boy. This is going to be a season for a lot of social game. Challenges are going to be long. People are going to take a long time to finish things, or the endurance challenges will be very short, right? Like, this is not a season for that kind of game. It's going to be interesting. But that's a really astute observation.
But I think that's why Rizzo stands out so much on this cast. He feels like a refreshing character, someone that we haven't seen before in the past. Maybe there's other people like Rizzo that I'm just forgetting right now. But if you compare him to some of the other characters, it doesn't really shape up for me.
No other Albanians. He's 101 in that category. And, I don't know if we've seen any other male Tauruses, so...
There's been male Tauruses, just no male Taurus winners, which... feels like a wild stretch to make at this point, but I can look past it. Are you ready to hop in and talk some Survivor?
We've got a lot of people, a lot of names. I have a whole lot of people written down in my notes as like, the rocket scientist or the reporter, right? Where do you want to begin here to start, taking bites of this elephant? Because we got a lot to go over.
We can mention some of the moments on the Matt chat, and in case anyone's new to Survivor Analytics at large, I mentioned earlier that I'm the true expert and Jack's the voice of the people. I've seen every season of the show, some of them more than once. Jack has only seen the seasons that we cover on this podcast, and if you're new to this thing entirely, then you should know that Jack is going to forget most of the names until around episode 5 or 6. That's just kind of how this works.
I was talking to a friend today who was like, "Are you excited that Survivor's back?" And I was like, "Nah, the first month and a half are really bad for me. Like, I don't do well. I don't know these people." It is crazy though. After this season, I will have seen 20% of the show.
Yeah, and maybe you'll remember 20% of the cast.
Yeah. So we get to the beach. Lot of screaming. There's a guy who he's a male. He's an alternate on the Yellow Tribe. He's the
Jason.
Smash Bros guy, Jason. He was an alternate who found out the night before that he was going to be on the show. That's pretty crazy.
It's crazy that it happened to begin with, and it's wild that Jason revealed that information out of the gate. But one thing that I thought was really interesting when it comes to Jason and his role as an alternate is the fact that he's not the only alternate on this cast. MC on that Yellow Tribe was also an alternate. And she also found out, I think, 30 minutes before she went to bed the previous night that she was going to be on the cast. So
that's crazy.
I assumed that the two of them would link up this episode. You had the breadcrumbs to that storyline, but it never comes to fruition. So kind of a bummer, but I think it'll come into play at some point down the line.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
I mentioned Sage. She makes weird faces and handles social situations poorly. Basically, you're a great value Carolyn of the cast.
On Sage, I would like to say my note about her appearance is she makes a face that I described in my notes as a nightmare face. She's like, when Jeff calls on her, and she says that she pees when she gets nervous, and she peed off the boat 3 times on the way to the beach, and apologizes for showing people her butt. We're in for a ride there.
She was the last pick of our fantasy draft. There was concerns over her hoarding blackheads in a jar in her apartment. And maybe there was a part of you that thought, hey, Sage is playing it up for the cameras. Maybe she's not actually that strange on the island. No, she's exactly who we thought she would be. And the same goes for Shannon, who we'll talk about later on.
Yeah.
Last person to mention from the Matt chat for me is Jake. This is where he basically tells the cast his story. His dad has a glaucoma, so Survivor 49 will be the last season that he physically watches.
Jake's got a lot going on. He contains multitudes because he's got this thing with his dad. He's got the story about his wife and soon-to-be-born child. He's got his schemes, his bromance. Jake's really one of the main characters of the cast that we get off the bat, right? There are some people on this cast who do not speak. Episode 1. MC, I don't think we hear from.
Yeah, I think we barely hear anything from most of the Yellow Tribe, to be honest. MC, we get some content from Steven, but outside him, like that Yellow Tribe is buried in the edit.
Sophie with an E, I couldn't tell you one thing she said. Well, so
on the topic of Jake, though, preseason, he said that he really admired Joe's game on Survivor 48.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a parallel between the two of them, outside both of them being strong guys?
I'm getting the sense that if Jake can navigate the social game well, like if he can make good strategic choices, he's got a much better widespread social game, right? Joe had a really great, kind of one bond, right? One primary thing. Jake, I'm getting the vibe that he's like, I mean, we get to Tribal, and Tribal should be really tense. And he has everybody laughing and smiling. That's a level of social connection and warmth that you cannot teach. So I think that's going to be a little bit different, but I guess in the sense of like a meat boy with a heart, he will be similar.
The fact that he's willing to hide contestant shoes is something that really distinguishes him from Joe.
Yes.
I could never see Joe pulling off a move like that.
Oh, Clyde, don't you know we're getting to it?
Yeah, the test for Jake down the line will be, is he willing to actually turn against his allies? Because that's something that Joe was never willing to do. I don't know if Jake has that cutthroat side to his game yet. So
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
We've got 3 tribes. Yellow is Hina, red is Uli, and blue is Kele. Am I saying those right? Ish?
Yeah, it's either Kele or Kela, I'm not sure.
The Fijian definitions of these words. Hina is from Sina, the Fijian word for torch. Uli is from the Fijian word to steer.
They compete in that opening challenge for supplies. They have to move boxes around. It ultimately ends with a box-shaped puzzle and then hitting a bell with some kind of hammer. And I thought when MC was on that box and she leaped into the air, I leaned to my buddy that I was watching the episode with, who hadn't watched Survivor in around 10 seasons. And I confidently said, this is about to be a slow motion shot. Because it's a prime slow motion shot. That jump in the air as you hit that bell for the win. And we don't get
slow-mo. There was one moment in slow motion and one that I thought that felt like it was slow motion in this episode. And I'll call them out when we get to them.
Okay.
Because it did feel like they wasted their usual opening challenge slow-mo opportunity here. Any trends here that really got you going? I mean, the one moment I have note of is Rizgod was like trying to direct the puzzle and was like, oh, nope, never mind.
Yep.
Which was kind of charming in a way of like, some people get very commanding from the sidelines in a puzzle and then they don't really own it if they're wrong. So seeing him do that was, I think, a good move socially for him.
Yeah,
that's
wins.
It.
They're definitely the dominant physical tribe so far this season. We mentioned it earlier. They barely get any screen time in this premiere. So I would not be surprised at all if Hina is the tribe that barely attends tribal council in the pre-merge, and then they get decimated in the early post-merge because they're this intimidating majority. We saw a similar dynamic in previous seasons. I think my mind immediately jumps to, in Survivor 44, there was the Ratu tribe. It was the orange tribe with Brandon, the everything man, if you remember Brandon. But that was a group that kind of ran the pre-merge, barely attended a tribal council, and then they all get picked off one by one in the second half. So that's everything in that first challenge. Do you want to go to the second challenge between Rizzo and Alex?
Yeah, so this is it's not called Sweat or Savvy anymore because it's Sweat and Savvy. I don't know if they have a name for it. That's what I called it in my notes. They each have to find 10 coconuts with their tribe's color on them, bring them back, break them open. They have puzzle pieces in them. Use those puzzle pieces to find a steering wheel, like a ship's wheel, buried in the sand, and then use that to raise a flag. This was fun because it goes on for a long time. And Clyde, you seem like the type of guy who loved the movie Holes when you were a kid.
I've seen Holes once or twice. I don't remember it too well at this point. Are you a big Holes guy?
I'm not a big Holes guy, but Alex seems to be a big Holes guy because we get a montage of this guy digging like 6 holes. He cannot find his wheel. He gets his puzzle together very, very quickly before Rizgod gets 2 pieces in place. Rizgod starts going over to Alex's puzzle and copying, right? Trying to copy. Even that is a challenge for him. Every time Alex comes back to look and like examine the map and see where the X is, how is he getting this wrong, right? He covers it up to make it harder for Rizgod to copy. We get a great moment here near the end. Rizgod realizes he's been missing a piece the whole time, finds it, finishes the puzzle, goes out as he's jogging out to find the wheel, says, "This one's for you, Mom," which is some great confidence because he's still well behind, right? At any point, Alex could pull the wheel out and be done. He uses his whole body to dig the pit, At one point, like shoving his shoulders in like he's a like human worm, finds the wheel and gets the win. It's cinematic. It's a great opening. Very memorable challenge, I think.
Yeah, I think this challenge proves that sometimes in Survivor, your reception by the fandom, it doesn't necessarily matter what you do, but more so how you go about doing it. Because I bet if you had a different character that wasn't as charismatic as Rizzo and you have them looking over at the other player's puzzle, the fans would criticize them for it. But because Rizzo has this charming side to him, people are rooting for him every step of the way.
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
I loved his celebration in Confessional too. He says, I wish I could hug myself, but that's weird. Like, it's strange to watch someone pat themselves on the back so much for technically cheating in the challenge.
But bringing back the supplies to camp, right? Like, I mean, this is a big moment for a guy who's young, who's trying to prove himself. It's high stakes, right? Think of the emotional low you have to go through to return to your camp for the, not even return, arrive at your camp for the first time without anything. Alex has to do that, right? Rizgod has avoided that eventuality. I love it. He's got a great story. He cries a little bit. He's talking about his parents were in an arranged marriage, emigrated from Albania. They're both custodians. They want him to pursue his American dream. Inspirational story. He's a proud Albanian. Did his taxes at 14. Really lovely stuff. So good stuff from Rizgod here.
Keeping with Rizgod, we can talk about the Uli camp a little bit. He rolls up to the beach with a great line. Did someone call the mailman? 'Cause I got the delivery. As he holds up the, I think it's the pot and the machete and the flint. So everyone's loving Rizgod now. They call him the hero of the tribe. And once everyone's back together, we start to see some of the characters in this group. I said this earlier in the podcast, but Shannon is exactly who I expected her to be when I read her preseason interview. She is the hippy-dippy girl that's going to force everyone in the tribe to do meditation with her, which is cool in some regards, but I feel like the edit undermines Shannon to a certain degree. From a strategic perspective, Shannon is in a great spot. Like, Savannah outlines it. Her and Shannon are at the center of this group. They have multiple people going to them and wanting to work with them. Yet Savannah feels like the real strategic mastermind of that operation because most of Shannon's content is character-based rather than strategy-based. So how did you feel about Shannon the character one episode in?
Quite the character. She, at one point, thanks the ocean.
Yes, she asked the ocean for love and respect.
Yes. Like, she's in a good spot. I think there's, like, a very strong potential here between Savannah and Sage. Oh, sorry, Savannah and
Shannon.
God.
Yeah, Shannon, like, Savannah, Sage.
They're all
on the same tribe.
I'm on the wiki for the season, and they're all grouped in a row, so I just looked in the wrong direction. Really strong potential there, right? You know, they've got a good relationship with Juwan. Rizzo's a good social player. Nate's very open. Like, there's a lot of potential for strategy here. I wrote down later in the episode something about how essentially we're seeing so many alliances happen on the blue tribe, nothing on yellow, except for the rocket scientist. And on this tribe, there's so many preliminary conversations, but it's so early, they don't really matter yet, right? Like, it's hard to tell what's real and what's just, hey, good to meet you. You want to be in an alliance? Like, everybody's in an alliance with everyone the first day, right?
Yeah.
I do want to call out Savannah. Savannah decides she's not going to tell everybody on the island that she was a reporter because she doesn't want people to know or think that she's really good with words. So instead, she tells everybody she's in marketing. I don't know what kind of marketing she thinks she does in this fictional job, but most of marketing is words. like it's like if I said, "Hey, I'm a doctor. I'm on Survivor. I don't want people to think I'm a doctor." "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a nurse." Okay, it's very, very similar. You could pick something better. Also to call out in this same category, Sage plays Roblox. I wrote down Sage likes Roblox, ... Carolyn 2.0, ... Is she on my team?
She is on your team.
I was struggling to keep all the S names straight. That is challenging this season.
It's funny when it comes to Savannah, too, because she doesn't want anyone to know that she's a reporter, but she talks like a reporter. She has that cadence in her voice. And I'm surprised that no one has really acknowledged it yet. And I'm excited to see her and Rizzo ideally work together at some point, because Rizzo's a podcaster on the side. I don't know if you knew this. Yeah,
I didn't know
he does
that.
a lot of sports podcasts. He's a big Knicks fan and Yankees fan.
Love it. All right, let me pitch something to you here. I want to characterize these three tribes as we're currently seeing them, and I want you to tell me if I'm close, because there's a lot of little conversations here that I don't want to get into every single one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yellow are going to be challenge beasts and go a long way, but the personalities just aren't quite as interesting, right? The relationships aren't quite there. There's the rocket scientist and the airport guy. They're bonding. That's kind of it. The rocket scientist makes an alliance with everybody. He plays too hard. That's yellow. Moving on. Red is the kooky tribe. They're the personalities, right? We've got the reporter. We've got the poop-obsessed one. We've got Riz God. We've got the Marvel guy. We've got the one who remembers her own birth. That's red. Personality. They're going to fill up the camera time. They're the ones where the background music will be like, boop, 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 beep, boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Like, aren't they funny? This is the funny tribe. Then we've got blue. Blue's here to play the strategic social game. Blue is where alliances are happening, where conversations matter because they're not good at challenges. They have the best individual physical competitor, but they've also got a lot of weaker physical competitors as well. So they've never really stood a chance in a challenge so far. So we're going to see them at Tribal a lot. And whoever gets out of blue, my guess, goes quite far in this season. That's my overarching vibe on these tribes.
So you see blue as the disaster tribe of the season. You think they're going to go to 2, 3, 4 tribal councils in the pre-merge?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they'll be...
I'm going to say 3.
3? Okay. I think they'll be the weakest, but I think that it'll be a pretty even distribution in terms of tribal councils. Like, there's seasons in the past where the cast came out and I immediately thought, what are they doing? This tribe is so much worse than the other ones. I thought that about Lulu on Survivor 45, the one with Brandon who couldn't get up the ladder. I looked at that group before the season started and I was like, half of these people aren't going to make it to the post-merge. And that's exactly what happened. Only 2 of them did. I don't think there's a group that's that terrible on this cast. But I agree that blue is probably going to tribal the most. We talked about Uli. Hina, you hit on the surface. You mentioned that Steven, the rocket scientist, is aligning with everybody. He talks to Matt. He talks to MC. He talks to Jason. That's great. And had the edit cut it off at that point, I would say that Steven is in a great spot long term.
Yeah.
But then they start to plant these seeds of paranoia. Steven is questioning if these people are actually being honest with him. He reverts back to his 4'11" high school self that was bullied. And as it stands right now, I think Steven's going to self-implode. I think he's going to be the first boot of that tribe.
Here's in my notes. Rocket Scientist and Old Man make an alliance. Rocket Scientist and Gamer Boy make an alliance. Rocket Scientist and Woman make an alliance. Rocket Scientist can't take it easy. We get this hypercut, right? Like you're saying, of all these alliances. And then the paranoia shots. Like, it's not only that he's in confessional questioning these alliances. The show is portraying him as paranoid, right? It's the, like, more intense, more cinematic, like, he's looking around. He's like, who's behind me, right? He is trying to play too hard. And the moment that really showed it off for me was he and Matt, the airplane guy, are doing something with bamboo. And he's like, okay, so who are we taking out first? And Matt's like, whoa, dude, it's way too early. Like, we just have to make sure it's not us. Like, we don't have to be naming names yet. It's just too early. We see this sometimes with players who get on the island and they go, oh my God, I'm on Survivor. I've got to play. Like, they have the Survivor bucket list. This guy's trying to tick too many things off his bucket list at once. And I think you're right. I could see it totally blowing up in his face.
I just feel like the edit focused more so on the paranoia than the building of alliances. Like, they rush through him connecting with all those people. That way they can focus on him starting to lose it a little bit. And I'll be interested to see, what does that breaking point look like for Steven? Is it that the other people just get together and realize, oh, Steven's playing all of us? Or is it a more public breakdown, which would probably make for better television? But that's just me.
And there's the quantity versus quality, right? We're seeing him make all these alliances where each one is like a 4-minute, hey, I like your vibe, let's be allies, right? He's not actually creating deep relationships with these people. He's ticking boxes. Just a quick thing in the Red Tribe, 8 is a little bit older than everyone else on his tribe. And by a little bit, I mean 15 to 20 years older than everybody on his tribe.
Man.
And he is wearing a pair of socks that say Rad Dad from his wife. And right now he's a stay-at-home dad. He's kind of in between gigs. And he doesn't want to be considered the dad on the tribe, right? There's a joke going around, oh, you've got dad vibes, because he is kind of the dad, right? He's 47. He has a different standard than everybody else does for like how to do things. And he's sort of suggesting things. He's not being like demanding. He's just offering, but he doesn't want to have dad vibes. There is a shot, and I don't know if you noticed this. I do think he's wearing toe shoes.
He is. He's wearing...
Which, okay, you can't be like, I don't want to be dad vibes, and then be wearing toe shoes.
Toe shoes and dad socks.
I'm trying to figure out how he's wearing the socks and the shoes.
He finds a way. He definitely rocks the sock-sandal combo back at home. You already know. He takes the dogs for a walk around the block in the socks and sandals combination.
But, like, do you think the socks are crammed into the toes?
Oh, for sure. They're way up in there. There's sand and stuff there, too. It's a disaster, but that's his fit. That's his baseline. But, yeah, I like Nate so far. For me,
me too.
One of the biggest surprises when it comes to Nate for me was that going into the season, I was so confident that Nate would want to work with Juwan because Nate's in the entertainment industry as a producer, and Juwan is some kind of video editor. So it just felt like the two of them would fit together. But based on what we've seen so far, they're in opposing groups. They're actually working against each other now. So
they're working against each other, but they don't have like enmity, and they've connected a little bit, right? Nate identified Juwan as somebody who might want to work with him. And we do see a moment of them connecting over movies. Like, I think they could end up working together, but right now the groups they are in are headed towards collision. Challenge?
Yeah, let's head over there. Another classic new era challenge. I'm sure you missed these, Jack.
You know, coming off of Survivor Panama, Exile Island, whatever you call it, this was rough to come back to. It's immunity and reward because we have to watch people talk for an hour and play games for 5 minutes. First place, immunity and a big toolkit. Second place, immunity and a small toolkit. Third place, loses their flint, goes to tribal. The idols are kind of like mermaidy figurehead figures. Mermaids wielding tridents. And I did want to note that one of the survival toolkits has a hammer that is a normal hammer. I think they have wrapped in coconut husks to make it look like shipwreckedy. Everything else looks a little worn, and the hammer looks like it's fresh from Ace Hardware with coconuts taped to it.
The Ace logo on the side, yeah.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the sticker was still on there underneath. Okay, to go into the actual challenge, this is where we got one of my slow motions. We get one slow-mo of a guy coming out of the mud. I'm actually not even sure who it was. And shaking their hair with the mud.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
And this is a quick pet peeve I have with Survivor's New Era. I'll add it to the list of pet peeves I have with seasons post 40. Why are we putting mud-based challenges in the premiere? As a viewer, you're getting to know everybody on this cast. It's important for you to be able to see someone and start to identify them. But if you're going to cover everybody in mud 30 minutes into the episode, how do you expect people to keep track of who's who?
That's a good point.
Maybe I'm overthinking it, but you just want to wait on those mud-based challenges till later in the season. Is it really doing that much for the challenge itself? You get one cool slow-mo shot, but I don't think that's worth it.
I think they really love the welcome to Survivor. You were clean on a boat and now you're filthy on the island, right?
Yeah,
There
it's a
is something
26-day
to that.
season. You got to expedite that process of making them look more worn.
Yeah, but that's a good point. Like, I don't know who was in that shot because of the mud. Like, I could not tell who it was. I think they were on the Blue Tribe. Couple highlights from the challenge. Jeremiah and Nicole are teamed up on the snake. They really struggle. Jeff hates them. Quote, Jeremiah and Nicole are still struggling. This is Survivor. If you want a picnic, go to a park.
Ooh.
You know, Jeff said that and then turned to the camera and went, yes, we got it. There's the clip. We then get a moment after they've brought their snake back where Jeremiah can't get the mud out of his eyes and Nicole spits water on his face.
That was insane. I could not believe that.
Doesn't pour water on his eyes, goes like crazy. Then they just move on. Everybody gets close to tied on the maze. At one point, the Blue Tribe, led by Nicole is doing a lot of the direction here, get pretty close and they have a drop and they take it very hard. And we get another moment of Jeff kind of digging in the knife, right, that he always carries. And he basically says, if you're going to take charge, you're the one who's going to be blamed if it goes badly, which is true, but he sort of accentuates it, right? In the end, Hina wins immunity first. Kayleigh has another drop and Uli win immunity second. So Blue Tribe will be going to tribal, yellow winning first, red winning second. Like the fact that they were all neck and neck at the end, right? The big physical part of the challenge wasn't a big differentiator in the end, right? It doesn't really mean anything. It comes down to the maze. But the differentiator, I think a piece of it at least, is fire. We're on day at least 2, if not 3. So they've had to spend their first night on the island without fire or a machete or a pot, right? They have not been able to shape their shelter. We get a shot earlier on of things falling out of it, right? They haven't had fire. They haven't had warmth. Doing a maze in that headspace is going to be harder on some level. And that psychological impact is noticeable here.
And I think challenges like this also prove that maybe physical prowess is a bit overrated in the new era of Survivor. Like, if you compare these challenges to the ones we saw on Panama, I think that your meat boys today aren't as important as they were 10, 15 years ago. Because even if you have to move a 200-pound snake and you lose a lot of time on that section of the challenge, at the end of the day, it all ends with a puzzle or some kind of dexterity-based event. It's weird that when we see these tribes go to tribal council, there's this large focus on, we got to keep the tribe strong, which typically means voting out the physically weaker people. But I would rather keep the puzzle beasts in the game over the physical beasts, just because they're the ones that can clutch it out for you at the very end.
Let's go to Kayleigh, to the Blue Tribe, and let's talk about Jake.
Okay.
Because listen, I left the draft anti-Jake. A dad missing his daughter or his wife's birth, like the birth of his son, red flag, right? That's no good. I'm like, that's a bad vibe. I'm a Jake fan, man. Like I can't lie. Like I'm loving it. I am hard pressed to dislike the guy because A, he's pretty charming, and B, he's clearly been listening to my Survivor analytics. And he knows that the best way to get the psychological edge on your teammates is to take their feet and make them worse. Russell Hantz burned Jason's socks in episode 1 of Samoa, and it was the greatest strategic move I've still ever seen on this show. But Jake hiding Nicole's shoe is close.
Wow.
Absolutely delicious.
That's high praise.
I'm here for it. I love it.
If you're new to the podcast, Russell burning the socks happened in literally the first episode that we ever recorded back in 2022, I want to say. Yeah. Almost 3 years ago when we watched that season, or at least started watching that season. And Jack has been bringing up that moment probably every other week for 3 years straight. So when I see Jake take someone's shoe and hide it in the jungle, I immediately facepalm because I realize that I have 3 years now of hearing about this one
precedent,
this big strategic move of the season. Here's a question for you, though. You said that Russell burning the socks affects the player psychologically, and I think part of the reason for that is because there's an element of permanence there. Once the sock is burned, there's no takesies backsies. Is Jake subtly motivating and inspiring his tribe by hiding the shoe? That way they have that small moral victory when they find it again.
Did it get found? I don't think so.
Yes, it was found by Nicole. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think so because I think it is. Imagine you're in Nicole's shoes, right?
Shoe, singular.
Yes. Imagine. So stupid, but that really got me. You're in Nicole's shoe. You're looking for Nicole's other shoe, and you're going, why would my shoe move? Somebody has moved my shoe. And then you find it under a tree trunk or whatever, 10 feet away. That's not somewhere that it could have rolled. The wind isn't taking it. Somebody's done this. One of my tribe mates has done this to me. Somebody doesn't like me. Somebody's trying to get in my head. That's paranoia. That's not motivator. That's mental burden that you're putting on somebody. Like, it's a great move. I love it. I think it's a fantastic way to weaken potential opponents. I really like it.
Well, why hide the shoe 10 feet away from camp if you could take that thing and throw it in the ocean and just eliminate it entirely?
Because I think he wants to be playful. This isn't full villainy. This is, I'm going to make some moves that are fun for the camera and don't make me look like a dick, but just like a player, right? Like, I think it's a little bit, there's an innocence to it, even though it's pretty devious at the same time.
He says that it's 99% entertainment and 1% chaos. So he's playing it up for the cameras for sure.
Yeah.
I hope he takes one of those shoes with him into confessional. I want to see him hold it in front of the cameraman and say, what should I do with this next? And just play with the viewer a little bit. Maybe we can bring in some kind of poll like they had for Survivor 50. Where should Jake hide Nicole's other shoe next? And based on the next time, I think he's going to hide someone else's shoe. He calls himself the Shoe Bandit.
Right? I think so. Yeah. How do you feel about Jake's alliance situation? Because he's got a lot of little relationships that are sort of turning into a bigger alliance here.
Yeah, so Jake locks down his core three. It's himself, Sophie with an I. Side note, it's still ridiculous that we have two Sophies on the same cast. But I can get past it. So Sophie with an I and Alex. That's his main three. And he straight up tells them that his wife is pregnant and he's going to become a dad while he's competing on the show, around 1 week from the point in time where they had that conversation. So even if Jake were to get voted out in the pre-jury phase of the game, by the time he would get home, he would already be a father, assuming everything goes as expected medically. By revealing that story, it feels like he locks down that trio, but they need a fourth. And this is where Jeremiah comes into the picture. Going into the season, I misread this tribe entirely. I said in our fantasy draft that I thought this group would be ruled by the girls and the gays. I thought it was going to be Jeremiah and Annie and Nicole and Sophie all running the show with the two meat boys on the outside. And it's exactly the opposite. Jeremiah goes to Jake and he wants to work with Jake. I think people see Jake as the strongest physical person on the cast, and that makes them all want to work with him as a shield. Maybe there is a secret benefit there to being the sole meat boy. Everyone thinks that they can hide behind you, but there's only so much room in Jake's shadow. So with Jeremiah joining that squad, now you have your majority of four, which leaves Annie and Nicole on the outside. And the big question going into Tribal Council is, who should they vote out? And I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Like, is there one particular camp that you lean towards? And are those two players deserving of even being on the bottom in the first place?
Nobody's deserving of being on the bottom in the first week, except maybe Annie.
Except one of them.
Like, I think in the first week, right, you're looking at the first 2 days on the island. The only reason you can deserve to go home is if you clearly either fully botch a challenge. And Nicole loses this challenge for them, but it's not just Nicole, right? Like it is a team effort. Nicole kind of gets the blame for it. The other way that you can actually deserve to go home is if you do not try to immediately get to know your tribe mates and you go off on your own. Annie immediately goes off on her own, immediately seems to be looking for advantages, is not building relationships, right? To the point where they are like, she's an easy second boot, right? We're going to take out Nicole now because for revenge. And Annie's like, I didn't realize how much of a physical beast she is in some ways, right? She's small for the weight stuff, but she's like an ultra marathoner.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, we can use her for one more time and then we can cut her if we have to, right? I think Annie was a better target, should have been going home this week, especially when Annie realizes too late, hey, I should probably start to make some relationships, goes to Sophie, offers a plan to get out some of Sophie's number ones, and they go, hey, wait a minute. Not only is she not really interested in getting to know us and establish relationships, but she does want to play the game and play against us. Yeah. So, like, that combination made me think Annie should go home, but, I mean, that's not what happened. How can you give me a good argument for Nicole to go home? Because I feel like I'm much more on the other side of this.
I agree with you. I think it should have been Annie that went out here. And it's weird to me that this tribe at large is focusing so much on the physical side of the game. To me, the main reason why Nicole came forward as a target is because she struggled in the challenge. And she vomited after the challenge, which we can talk about too, because I don't know the cause of that vomit at all.
By the way, that was what I do think might have been the second slow-mo. For me, that felt like it was in slow motion, because they showed way more of that than they needed to.
Okay, but when it comes to Nicole, if you want to target her based on physical strength, I kind of get it. But you have the strongest physical player on the entire cast here. Like, do you really want this vote to focus on that side of the game? If you're red or yellow, I understand that perception way more than if you're the blue tribe. So that confused me a bit. I don't think they're really in the stage now where they should be focusing mainly on challenge prowess when it comes to their votes. I mentioned it. Nicole throws up, and I don't know why. Is there any build-up to that moment? Like, is she feeling nervous going into tribal? Is she exhausted from the previous challenge?
She's on the hunt, right? She's trying to find evidence. The edit is tough. It's a tough look for Nicole. But at the same time, it is fairly level-headed. Like, it's not some crazy cinematic Andy edit that makes him look, or like the rocket scientist looking really paranoid. Nicole is trying her best as a forensic investigator, like that's what she does in the real world, to detect why people might not be like making eye contact, if people are trying to placate her so that she doesn't play her shot in the dark. She gets a little nervous that she's the target, and I think it's honestly a panic thing. Like, she panic vomits. Like, she's, like, nauseous. You could make the argument that maybe we were supposed to think she has figured out she's the target and vomits out of fear, right? Oh my god, this could be it, right?
But a vomit out of realization, a Eureka vomit.
Yeah. She's stressed. She's going, oh god, this is it. But we get this whole montage of her studying people, trying to figure out eye contact, all of this. And then she doesn't play her shot in the dark after all of that.
Yeah.
Which is really tough. I mean, she takes it like a champ. Her exit little thing at the end credits was really kind of sweet, and she takes it well. But it's a tough way to go out. I'm already talking about tribal like it's happened, but it's a tough one.
Yeah. I think we should be good to go to tribal. I don't know if there's much else I have to say about Nicole. I did have a tinfoil hat theory.
Please.
That Nicole pulled Trig to lower her threat level.
Nah, I mean, they showed it on camera. That was a stress response.
I can't remember the last time they showed a contestant throwing up on the show. Like when we watched Panama, we saw some pretty gruesome medical situations there of contestants getting stitches, of Bruce struggling with constipation and getting an IV.
We see Aris's whole fall.
Yeah.
Like
it's a pretty gruesome season at points. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is something that they would never show on Survivor today. And here we are like a month later and we get Nicole throwing up in the forest. Not a ton of notes from Tribal Council for me. The Jeremiah laugh is on full effect. Preseason, I said that his laugh would annoy me, and I stand by that take now. No shade towards him, but it's just something that I get a little bit sick of the deeper we get into the episode. It's a very distinct laugh. I'll give him that.
Let me tell you. New listeners might not know that, I mean, these episodes are really long. I typically watch the show sped up. That laugh is way worse in 2x speed.
But you get through it twice as fast.
It really gets a little chipmunky. It's a little bit of an Alvin situation. I want to talk about Jeremiah in Tribal, actually. He's a little bit of a loose cannon. For a new era player, he is very direct about plans. He says straight up, we have something along the lines of, we have identified the 2 weakest players and we are choosing between them, right? To which Nicole immediately looks at Alex and says, am I good? And he says, yeah, you're good. Don't worry. And she falls for that. But Jeremiah is bringing that up. Like, that felt like the kind of slip of the tongue that will put him on the chopping block sooner than later.
And I'm surprised that Nicole and Annie never picked up on it. Neither of them play their shot in the dark.
No.
So there are definitely breadcrumbs in the edit hinting at Jeremiah making some kind of big mistake down the line. Him and Steven are the 2 I could see messing up in the future. But that's really it that I have from Tribal. Yeah. Can I get to the vote?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a consensus. 5-1. 5 on Nicole, 1 on Annie. Nicole is sent out of the game. And it was a real shame. We didn't see much from Nicole this season. I wouldn't call her a disastrous first boot by any means. She's not in the same tier as people like Jelinski from Survivor 46. She was on my fantasy team, so it's never fun losing someone in the first episode of the season.
I was just going to look for whose fantasy tribe she was on.
Yeah,
to check.
That segues well. We always end the episodes with winners and losers. I do a dishonorable mention. Jack does an honorable mention. My dishonorable mention this week is my fantasy roster. We've ran that fantasy league for 6 seasons now, I want to say, since Survivor 44. Across those 6 seasons, I've never picked the season's winner on my team, and I've now picked 2 first boots. I had Stephanie, who I took in the first round of 48, who went out episode 1, and now I got Nicole. Nicole doesn't hurt as much because I took Nicole in the 3rd round, but I feel like the way that the scoring system of fantasy works, it's such that if you have one of those super early boots, it's like nearly impossible to win the whole thing.
Yeah, that's tough.
So I've accepted my loss at this point, but do you have anything to say about Nicole before winners and losers?
You know, I loved her moment where, and this isn't my honorable mention, this is just a moment to shout out, when she goes up to Jeremiah and she's like, thank God I'm not the only gay person here. Like, that was a really charming moment, and I was like, this could be a fun alliance to watch going forward, and then she's gone. So I'm sad to lose her. I feel like that was a big personality that, there's the broiness of this tribe is going to escalate, right? More and more between the Jake and Alex alliance. And I liked the balance that Nicole brought to the tribe in terms of personality. But yeah, sad to see her go.
And when it comes to these early boots, sometimes someone's voted out in the pre-merge, and I think this is a contestant that I could never see doing well on any random Survivor season. Banu is a perfect example from Survivor 46, where I think if you put that guy on 100 seasons, he's a pre-merge boot more often than not. Nicole doesn't fall into that camp for me. She was more of a victim of circumstance. I think if you put her on 100 seasons, yes, there are ones where she goes out early, but if she can find her people, I could see her doing relatively well.
Yeah, I can totally see that. So who's your winner?
Winner for this episode was a bit tough. Emotionally, I wanted to give it to Rizzo, but then I'd just be giving it to Rizzo every single week. Right. So I'm going to give my winner to Savannah. I feel like Savannah is working the middle of that Uli tribe alongside Shannon, but as I mentioned earlier, she's presented more as the strategic mind of that partnership. Plus, we get a little bit of backstory from Savannah. She talks about how she was a reporter, but she's not going to leak that to the rest of the cast. I think it's important to have some kind of storyline coming out of the premiere. I think it's really rare where you finish that first episode and your winner is completely invisible. Like if we compare it to Panama, which we just covered on the podcast, Aris got some personal content in that first episode. He was presented as the kooky yoga instructor, but he was still presented to begin with. So right. I think things are looking good for Savannah, both from a character perspective and from a strategic perspective.
And that's an aspect where somebody like MC or the other Sophie, right? I don't think they spoke this week.
Yeah.
Like, they're probably going to be sort of nondescript boots in the middle of the season because we don't know them at all after episode 1. My winner is RIZGOD.
No way. You did it for me?
Listen. I was anti-Andy all the way. For a very long time, I was anti-Andy. I think I maybe came around to him near the end.
You came around to him like literally the second to last episode of the season. It took a long time.
It did. This guy, Rizgod, if you're listening, you're welcome anytime. I won't be able to tell the two of you apart, but
it'll be an unbearable podcast for the full hour.
I love the vibe. I love the win. I think he, like you said earlier, he's a unique archetype that we haven't seen in a while. Young, confident, but like not great at the challenges, right? But gritty, right? He's not good at puzzles, but he grits through it and he wins. That's a good storyline. That's a storyline that could carry him far. I love to see it. I like where he's at. So RIZGOD.
Yeah, there's an element of self-awareness when it comes to Rizzo. I think if you took the exact same character, but you don't have those moments of him saying, if it's a puzzle, we're cooked, then he would come across as like the young, cocky kid of the cast. But he's able to like recognize his own weaknesses, which I respect. My loser this week, I'm going to give it to Jawan on the Uli tribe as well.
Yeah.
I think that things are turning against Jawan slowly, and the edit hints at this. He's initially in the majority of that tribe, and he has that whole confessional talking about, we are holding auditions for our 4th member. Who's going to be the 4th person in the majority? Mm-hmm. But over time, he starts to lose a bit of control, and there's that scene of him making the fire, and Savannah saying, man, this guy's freaking out over failing in fire making. Maybe I don't want to work with him. I think the edit is starting to give us reasons as to why that tribe flips against Jawan. And since Savannah is my winner, I think logically it makes sense to make Jawan the loser.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. My loser's Annie.
Yeah. She's
also in a bad spot. Like she's at the bottom of a tribe that's already a man down and has already lost 2 challenges. They're not looking good. So
if Blue loses next week, is it a unanimous vote against Annie?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very easy boot because I don't think she has any inroads. I think these other friendships and alliances are building and she's already behind, right? Her choice to not get to know people is going to bite her in the butt.
Will she be self-aware enough to play her shot in the dark?
Maybe. I mean, she held on to it this week. Maybe that's a good sign for next week.
I think I agree with you. I think she goes home, but I think she realizes that she's going home at least. And that's something that Nicole didn't do.
I think it's also worth noting there was a comment in the next time on where somebody calls somebody else a Karen. And I hate to, pigeonhole somebody. She is the oldest woman on the cast. If anybody's going to get called a Karen, it could be her. So it could be that she says something, she gets upset and gets called a Karen, right? Like, that could be how this breaks down next week.
And she's kind of an old school player. She takes time away from the rest of the tribe, not because she's looking for idols. There's speculation that she's looking for idols, but in reality, as far as we know, she was just building the shelter.
Right.
So I could see her having that old school mindset, and because of that, people calling her a Karen. I already gave my dishonorable. Mine's to my fantasy team, but what's your honorable mention this week?
My honorable mention is the Seattle Mariners.
Okay.
Because the the immunity idols on this season have tridents. They're wielding tridents, and the Mariners' old logo is a trident. When a Seattle Mariner hits a home run, they wield a trident. They walk down the dugout and they slam it down. And just last night, Cal Raleigh hit 2 home runs. He has now tied Babe Ruth for 60 in a season, the most, third most in the American League history. He's still got some time to get a couple more. Who knows? If he hits 3 more, that's the most in league history. But I'm a big Mariners fan. They're looking pretty good going into this postseason, so I've got some hope. First time winning the West in 24 years.
That's interesting to me that in baseball, they divide the records by conference, that they have like American League and National League records. I feel like they don't do that in most other American sports. It's kind of just the entire league is what they're compared against.
Yeah, but I mean, we could talk about that for hours. We're not going to force our listeners to listen to that. But what we will force our listeners to hear, if they don't hit pause, is go follow us on social media, TikTok, YouTube, @Survivor Analytics. Go watch all of Clyde's fantastic videos and the few that I'm in that are mostly clips of this. But it is mostly Clyde there. So go check those out because they're way better than anything I could do. We'll be here all season, every week. So keep tuning in.
Yeah, we'll be here every step of the way doing an episode. At the end of the season, I do a player ranking for the cast. And then over on TikTok, I'll be making little recaps after each episode as well. Jack is in charge of our Threads account. So if you want to hear his thoughts as he watches the episode, I don't know if there's been a post on there in around a year. But if you want to follow along, waiting for that first drop since 2024.
We're on Threads, we're on Blue Sky, but I don't watch live, so I don't bother posting.
But hey, they should know just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Hey, if you go follow us on those, you're a real one. And if you tweet or thread at us, I don't know what the verb is there. If you thread at us, I'll give you a shout out on here. So wow. I promise to do that. If anybody sends us a thread, I will shout you out.
Okay, that'll require them to download Threads first. But
see you next week.